Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John Jake Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the FCS Dynasty, where we are here in that final week of the regular season and gonna take some time to highlight a couple of teams that don't really get much love in terms of actually watching them in gameplay, as well as take a look at what's gonna happen with the conference championship games. We will have a preview of that later on in the episode. And just a little treat for you guys, we will also have the senior day for DeAndre Dowdell, the Georgia Southern transfer. He's now playing at Tulsa, so we'll have a check-in to see how he's doing as well. So if that all sounds good to you, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. As we'll go ahead and get things underway, we do have the annual game that happens between Morgan State and Rhode Island, since in the actual Dynasty file themselves, they did replace, quote-unquote Army and Navy. So because of that, these two teams, they play up against each other every year. And this is the 5th iteration of that since we are in season number 5 of the FCS Dynasty. But to be honest, neither team is very good, right? Neither team is even ranked in the top 100. So these are two teams that don't really have any hope of going to the FCS playoffs. This is really the type of game that, like, the sickos committee on Twitter, if you guys know about that, you certainly know this will be the type of game that, like, those that are into that would be into, since these two teams combined for, I think, 4 wins total on the year. So not necessarily that big of a thing, right? So that's what we got going on right now, as we're checking in to see how things are moving along here. Still untied game after 1 quarter of action, but that does not last forever though, as Rhode Island does finally gets itself on the board for its very first play of the 2nd quarter, and Rhode Island will be up 7-0. But what Morgan State does have, and again, it's not a lot of talent on this roster, but Morgan State does have a pretty solid quarterback in Michael Nash, and he knows a thing or two about distributing the football. The offense hasn't been the issue for the Morgan State Bears. It really has always been the defense. The defense has been terrible. So I'm actually surprised that this is as low scoring of a game that we have seen right now, right? So anyways, Morgan State, they still have not scored yet, but they are on the goal line. The fullback of all people is going to get involved. How about them apples? That's a touchdown for the Morgan State Bears, and that will make this a tie ball game. All knotted up at 7 apiece for right now, but we'll see if that lasts forever, as Rhode Island, they're going to look to strike back and really doing a great job throwing a beautiful football over the left-hand side. Gonna go for a beautiful touchdown grab. I mean, look at this throw, one-on-one coverage. You love to see that kind of ball. And one thing that I've noticed, like, between NCAA 06 as well as the most recent NCAA and NCAA 14, granted, college football revamp, I gotta give them their flowers because they did pour new life into this game. The AI in NCAA 6 is just a lot smarter. Like the quarterbacks, for example, they're willing to throw that touch pass. They know what kind of touch to throw in that ball most of the time, whereas NCAA 14, all that they're going to do is they're just going to throw bullet passes all day long, no matter what type of pass is actually required, right? So that's just something that I've noticed, comparing NCAA 06 to NCAA 14, right? But Rhode Island will score yet again here, as that will give the Rams a 14-7 lead over the Morgan State Bears. So right where you want this team to be, but we'll see if Morgan State can do anything about that, as they trying to set up this quick screen there, and on the surface it seemed like it was set up pretty well, but Rhode Island did a great job rallying to the football and really forcing Morgan State to eventually punt the football away. So they still find themselves down by 1 possession, but they are trying to drive down the field. Last couple of minutes of this first half, as Michael Nash is going to go with a 5-wide set, throws to the right hand side, gets away from the entire defense except the safety. The safety comes in there, right place, right time, and prevents the touchdown, but it is still a very big gain there through the air, as Morgan State will find itself in the red zone. And for all the problems that Morgan State has had, they're actually a pretty solid red zone team, scoring on 80% of their possessions of on the season. And they will add on to that as well another touchdown for Morgan State. They will tie it up at 14 apiece, but before we go into the halftime locker room, Michael Nash is going to just throw this beautiful ball running away from the left-hand side to, I mean, look at this. Just great to just get just that moment of extra time. That was really the difference. Just a little bit more extra time, and Morgan State now has a 21-14 lead. But now we jump into the second half of action, and they will start the second half with a play action as Michael Nash throws another big ball down the right-hand side, and that is a touchdown for the Morgan State Bears. Oh my, that is a great football thrown there. It ends up being a 72-yard touchdown. Oh man, that is a great ball. You love to certainly see that for sure. So Morgan State really starting to take control of this game as Rhode Island can't really score on this below average Morgan State defense. As Morgan State, they're going to try to score again here on this possession, but that man got blown up in the backfield. That is a sack for the Rhode Island defense. But on the next play though, Nash is going to try to scramble over on the right hand side, but then he also gets sacked there too. They try to set it a play action, but Rhode Island doing a little bit better job there with those play actions. So Morgan State does have to punt the football away. So it opens up a window a little bit for Rhode Island to get back into this game, but I don't think things are going to go in Rhode Island's direction here today. It just doesn't feel like that's their type of thing for them. Coach Kirby, he is the coach of Rhode Island, by the way, and you know, still a lot of work to be done. It's hard to build at a place like Rhode Island because they're not even the best team in Rhode Island at the FCS level. Brown is right down the road from them, and Brown has been a consistent FCS playoff team. I think they went either every single year or all but 1 year. They have a good chunk of playoff appearances. I will say that. Yeah, they have 3 playoff appearances. Could make it a 4th if they do end up finishing things up with the Big East, which I'm pretty sure that they did, by the way. But yeah, that just goes to show how challenging it is to build at Rhode Island right now. That's what they got to deal with. Not even being a team, the best team in the state that not is really known for producing Division I caliber football talent, right? So that's what's going on for them right now. But going back to the game though, Michael Nash, he's going to throw over to right hand side. That's a nice interception, at least over to Lance Campbell, who does get his very first interception of the season. Got the little dark visor. Don't see white boys with a dark visor very often, but Rhode Island will take over inside the 10-yard line though, and deep in their own territory. Quarterback knows he got to get rid of this football quickly, otherwise it was going to be a safety. Well, maybe the safety would have been a little bit better, as Rhode Island does end up turning the football over yet again. That does end up being their 4th turnover of this football game. And now 38-14, last play of the game possibly, and what does Morgan State do? They run the score up a little bit. They want it to be known that, hey, we're going to finish on a high note, trying to create some positive momentum for recruiting, and that is going to do it here. The first of really 2 games that we have going on here in the FCS Dynasty for Week 15. Morgan State wins big here. They win 45-14. Rhode Island, a tough season for the Rams. Showed some signs of life back in year number 4, but going in a downward direction here in year number 5. And Rhode Island finishes the year 2-9. However, before we go into the second FCS game, the other FCS game that we have in this episode, which is also the FCS game of the week, we will also check in on the Andre Dowdell, who's on this Tulsa squad, part of a bigger American conference that has 14 teams now. And Tulsa having a solid year at 7-4, but Tulane really emerging itself as one of the best teams in the entire group of 5, right? Tulane, starting to get to a point where they are constantly ranked, at least here in this universe, right? and maybe we'll see a little bit more of this universe, maybe even after the FCS Dynasty does come to its conclusion. You know, something to possibly watch out for in the future, right? So that's something to look forward to. A little bit of a teaser for maybe the next series that comes to the channel. But DeAndre Dowdell, he's doing a decent job flying around, right? He actually does get a few tackles in this game, even does so much as get a TFL in this game, but doesn't force any turnovers. And Tulsa in the snow here on senior day does end up losing this game. So Lane will finish the year 10-2 as they beat Tulsa 32-17. So now we jump back into the FCS Dynasty here, the actual FCS teams, and we got UMass taking on Portland State here. And Portland State particularly is a team that has been extremely disappointing. This should have been a tune-up for them. But now I don't even know if they beat UMass, right? UMass is also 3-7 right now, which is something I would never expect to say from Portland State, given they were a top 10 team in the preseason. Remember that. I know I said that in the previous episode, but that's just so crazy to think about, right? That a top 10 team could just be this terrible over the course of a season. But maybe they can at least win this game and at least finish the year on a high note in what's been overall a difficult year. And, you know, Portland State does get to a good start. They will take a 7-0 lead here early on. But we'll see if UMass can make things at least a little bit more interesting. 2nd and 7 from the 23-yard line, as Nate Lone does have multiple backs in the backfield. So max protection, but Portland State, they're still going to get to him though. Michael Burke coming down to lay the lumber on that quarterback. And he's certainly going to be feeling that in the morning. UMass will be made to punt, and it's not a great punt either. So Portland State going to start in UMass territory, and Carl Pierre, not wasting any time, throws a beautiful ball out into the end zone. That is going to be another touchdown for the Portland State Vikings in this one. They will take a 14-0 lead here early on in this ball game. So a good start for Portland State. Meanwhile, UMass still trying to find their groove a little bit here. Last play of the first quarter, as Nate Lowe does throw a pretty nice football in order to give the Minutemen for the first down. And I don't know why those Portland State fans are going crazy. Maybe they're just simply happy to be here. I really don't know what's going on, to be honest. But UMass, they are driving down the field trying to get something going here, but Portland State is going to intercept the pass, and that will be brought all the way back into the end zone. Touchdown Vikings, as Greg Rackley going to pick it off, and that extends the lead for Portland State even further. Trying to throw it out onto the flat, but it just, you know, it was read like a book. It was simply read like a book. And it looks like Portland State, they finally showed themselves as a team that we thought a lot of us could have been. A team that can really dominate. And they're certainly dominating this UMass team, but, you know, in the scope of the season, it's a little too late, right? But Carl Pierre is going to try to get his guys to a 28-0 lead. Throws this one up to the end zone, but that will be broken up instead. And what was a key third down for the Portland State Vikings, they will instead settle for a field goal, and it will be a 24-0 lead for the Portland State Vikings, as Nate Lowe trying to get UMass back in this game. That was a nice throw there at the very least, but going to need a lot of that. They're going to pull off this comeback anytime soon. Jordan Davis, of course, having other plans, as even after UMass got that big play, they're going to stop that right in their tracks. And still, UMass is scoreless. But 1 minute left to play here in the first half, as the Sherman tank is going to get the handoff. He makes multiple guys miss, breaks a third tackle, and is finally going to be forced out of bounds. But that will give Sherman over 1,000 rushing yards on the season. So while it's been a disappointing season for Portland State, you can still be happy for some of the players on this team. running for 1,000 yards, even in a shorter season for 11 games. That's a pretty big accomplishment. And speaking of the Sherman, he will run it into the end zone there too. And Portland State will therefore extend their lead even further, making this a 31-0 lead. So that takes us into the end of the first half. And the thing about Portland State is that here in the second half, they start with the football as well. So they can they have the lead, they have the ball, they even got momentum right there. And that's just another big time catch there for Cam Jordan, who continues to thrash the UMass secondary. He's now at well over 100 yards, but really hitting them with those long catches because he only has a few catches on this game, and yet he still obviously has that 100-yard receiving day, unless he just gets a bunch of screens that always end up going for a loss for whatever reason and whatnot. But the Sherman will take the lead there too, as Portland State making it 38-0. One more run for the Sherman take, give him another touchdown, and sure enough, he's going to get it. Portland State's gonna finish the year on the high note. They beat UMass by the final score of 51-0. UMass will finish the year 3-8. So the regular season games have come to an end, and now we're just at a point where we're trying to figure out who's gonna go to the FCS playoffs, who is going to be staying at home, and it starts with figuring out who gets those automatic qualifiers, right? So most of the automatic qualifiers have been taken care of, but there is 5 that are going to be on the line in the next episode. Going to start with specifically the games that are going to be shown as box scores because they're just not as intriguing. We got Akron, who comes in number 1 in the country. They're taking on an unranked Central Michigan, and if Akron wins this game, what Akron will end up doing is that they will not only get that automatic bid, but what we will also see is they will get into the FCS playoffs as the number 1 overall seed, and that would give them the easiest overall path to get to the national championship game. As for Central Michigan, it's going to be a do or die game for them, as Central Michigan must win this game in order to continue their season. If not, 7-5 in that MAC conference, a weaker conference this year, is simply not going to get the job done. And then the other game that will be showed as a box score is the Conference USA Championship. Eastern Carolina and Rice do meet up against each other, but neither team really in a position to get an at-large bid. Both teams are 7-4, and unfortunately, neither of these teams are not as good as what they used to be. So winner of this game will go to the FCS playoffs, but they will likely get in as a lower seed though. But it is a game that is worth watching. Now, as for the major conference championship games that we'll be looking for, we got James Madison, ranked number 7 in the country. They will be taking on the Delaware Blue Hens here in the next episode. This will be the first of 3 games that we'll watch in that next episode. James Madison, they have a lot to play for. While they'll probably still get into the playoffs if they lose this conference championship game, James Madison is also in the position to get a first round bye. Critical to trying to make that deep run that they were attempting to make this year, as last year they did make it all the way to the national championship game before going down and losing to Georgia Southern, right? But Delaware, they know a thing or two about pulling some upsets. We've seen them win the ACC championship a time or two here, as Delaware comes in 7-4. However, that being said, the Blue Hens, if they win this game, they will be in. If not, their season is also going to be done, as 7-5 for Delaware is not going to cut it. But after the ACC championship game, we will then have the SEC championship game, and this is the one that I'm most excited about personally. Got number 2 Sam Houston State taking on number 16 ranked Texas State. So a little bit of a Lone Star rivalry going down here. Texas State should be in that top 5, but unfortunately, because of their national profile coming into the season, that's why they're sitting at number 16. And while I think they should be in the playoffs no matter what happens in this game, if Texas State does lose, they could be looking at standing in the bubble and possibly be left out of the FCS playoffs, even though like I said earlier, I think they deserve to be in. However, Sam Houston State, they're ranked number 2 in the country. They are probably in win or lose. However, winning this game will automatically allow them to be a first round bye, automatically move forward to the second round of the FCS playoffs. If they lose, they'll still be in, but they will have to deal with that first round game. One reason why I'm excited about this one in particular, look at their points per games for both offenses. They're both top 5 in the country, and I think this is going to be a shootout that we will not forget, and I would not be shocked if it just comes down to whoever happens to have the ball last. That's really what I think barrels down to, and it's going to be a very exciting game to watch. And speaking of exciting games to watch, we will have the Big 12 championship game. It'll be the last game that we will end up watching here on the channel in the next episode. Big game here as well, and it's going to be a contrasting of styles. Alcorn State, they like to put a lot of points on the board very quickly. They have one of the best passing offenses in the entire country, whereas Texas Southern, they have one of the best run offenses in the entire country, led by Roderick Murray, the senior running back. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to be able to impose their will a little bit better. Texas Southern might still be able to get in even if they lose this game, but they would be sitting on the bubble. Whereas Alcorn State, they need to win this game if they want to make their very first FCS playoff appearance. If not, Alcorn State's season is going to be done. This is the Braves' second appearance in the Big 12 championship game, and they need to pull the upset on Texas Southern if they want to go and experience playoff football. But guys, that will wrap things up here. Week number 15, final regular season episode. And now we get down to the nitty gritty. The playoff teams, the teams that have a legitimate shot of going to the national championship game. This next episode, we will have those conference championships, and we will see who gets those final automatic qualifying bids to go to the FCS playoffs and compete for that ultimate prize. And that ultimate prize is an FCS national championship. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is John Shake Gaming on the mic, signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.